Have you ever watched a movie trailer and thought, yep, I know exactly what they're going for here? Where every frame, every punch, and every joke reinforces what the film is supposed to be? Well, that exact feeling washed over me when I saw the Masters of the Universe trailer. They put such a strong foot forward with their marketing campaign that I knew immediately that this movie was going to be a fun ride, and it would be something that everyone was going to enjoy, whether that be franchised fans or new ones just looking for a movie to watch on date night. Everything I saw reminded me of those 80s panel van murals that had Valkyrie warrior maidens riding Pegasi, or Death in his black cloak standing in a graveyard. Just metal as hell. And you know what? I was right. First things first, I would not describe myself as a He-Man fan. I think I saw a few trailers for reruns of the show on Boomerang back in the day, but I was way too in love with Batman the Animated Series to devote any of my spare time to another cartoon. So I got the broad strokes of the IP down, folded the term He-Man into my personal lexicon like everybody else did during that time, and filed it away like Bradley Cooper's character in Limitless. All of this is to say that I have no preconceived notions about this movie, the IP, or what they can and should be. To be frank, until I got about halfway through the trailer, I thought this was going to be a soulless IP cash grab, like the Kool-Aid Man doing the Zay Shuffle. And I'm not saying this movie isn't that. But what I am saying is that at the very least, the people involved in it were committed to upholding the source material and having a ton of fun while doing it. In a lot of ways, it reminded me of the criminally underrated Dungeons & Dragons movie with Chris Pine, which I will admit I only saw once it came to streaming, so I'm at fault there too. It has that same kind of love and care put into it, where everyone just feels like they were there because they actually wanted to be. As you can probably imagine, this movie was always going to sink or swim based on who they cast to play He-Man himself. Now, given what I knew about the character at the time, I would never in a million years have picked Nicholas Galitzine to fill those monstrous shoes. Which is why, in part, I am not a casting director in Hollywood. Up until this point, I think I saw him in a trailer for an Anne Hathaway direct-to-streaming movie. He plays a much younger heartthrob to Hathaway's cougar. Kind of pigeonholed him for me right then and there. Super glad to see I was wrong. He kills it. He's able to go from dorky office jock, who they are desperately trying to convince you isn't already jacked, to a literal war god with hair Fabio could only dream about without so much as skipping a beat. There's a moment where he's trying to reclaim the sword of power that I almost did a spit take in the theater because he was so damn funny. Acting alongside him, we've got a seriously all-star cast with Alison Brie, Idris Elba, Morena Baccarin, Camila Mendes, and James Purfoy, among others. And the beautiful thing is that because Galitzine turns in such a strong performance, everyone else is just able to melt into their characters and actually add to the story being told. And now we come to the villain of the piece, both in the movie and in the marketing run-up, Jared Leto. If you know, you know, am I right? I was terrified when I saw his name in the trailer as Skeletor. He has sunk more slam dunk films than I think any actor in the history of Hollywood. In my house, his name is a byword for truly terrible films, and I was scared shitless that he was going to sink this movie like he sunk Tron Legacy. Well, he nails it. I'm not going to say Skeletor was a role he was born to play, but it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine. He's kooky, he's dry-witted, he's suitably intimidating when he has to be, and he was always a delight to see on screen. God save me, I know this man has a niche in Hollywood, I just have no idea what it is. Because based on this performance, he should have been able to turn in a solid Joker, but we all know how that one turned out. One thing that is very important to mention with this film is to keep your expectations tempered regarding its story. It's basically the opening pages of the Arthurian legend. Like, verbatim. Long-lost heir reclaims his father's sword to return home in glory and rule the kingdom. They've even got a Merlin analog in Idris Elba's Duncan. And that is 1000% okay. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with something like this. And they knew that the true magic of this film was going to come through with the actors and the makeup and the special effects. So, let sleeping dogs lie and enjoy the ride. Honestly, given my limited experience with the IP, I'm not even sure what they could have done different without just jumping into the deep lore and alienating over half their audience. When I say that it's good enough, I mean that in the best, most complimentary way possible. Now, I will say that they leaned a little too hard on the aw shucks stuff for my taste. I get that Adam is supposed to be a man torn between two worlds, but he came off as just a little too doofy. Like, after 15 years on Earth, you'd think he'd know to not bring up the fact that he's basically an alien when he's out on a first date. That's just common sense. And then, when he gets back to Eternia, he tries to have an HR meeting with the battle-hardened warriors he left behind. We get it, he's gawky. But he hated working in HR. Why would he try to transfer those skills? I'm not saying he should have been a suave James Bond type or a stoic silent protagonist, but there's a middle ground here that I feel like they pushed just a little too far to one side on. Look, I'm a 90s kid, which means that I missed the boat when He-Man was at his height. But it also means that I was old enough to play with the toys that were still knocking around in the various toy boxes of my family members and friends. Basically anyone that was in that age bracket back in the day. So, when I say that characters like Trapjaw, Man-at-Arms, and Fisto all look exactly how I remember them, you'll know that they hit that nostalgia button just right. This isn't some slick, modern-era reboot where they completely rebuild the characters from the ground up. They look every bit as chonky and injection molded as the toys I played with as a kid. Whoever did the makeup and prosthetics for this movie clearly understood the assignment. And along with the prosthetics discussion comes the visuals. Now, I realize that you can't create a fantasy world like Eternia without dipping heavily into the inkwell that is CG, but I'm sure you'll understand my hesitance to accept this given how god-awful such things can look these days. Which is why I was pleasantly surprised to find that, well, yes, there are a sizable number of green screen shots. There's also a lot of practical, with Skeletor's throne room being a standout. They realized that the iconic locations in this film needed to be practical. Not just because the practical sets will always get a better performance from actors, but because it lends a gravitas to the moment that CG, to date at least, cannot deliver. As an example, I'll point you to the duel between Yoda and Palpatine on the Senate floor in Revenge of the Sith. I was more invested in He-Man and Skeletor's final battle in a small, practically built room than I ever was in that green-screened abomination where Palpatine is yeeting seat modules around like they were donuts aimed at Chief Wiggum's mouth. And lastly, we come to the music, which, Queen. Enough said. Any movie that uses Queen in any capacity cannot be all bad. Alright, maybe that's not entirely true, but this soundtrack is banging. Soul-shredding rock riffs, sweeping orchestral moments, gentle themes of love and loss. This movie kind of has it all. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they released this OST on vinyl just to cash in on a few more nostalgia points. Masters of the Universe is a nutty movie. It's one of those once-in-a-decade flicks where they threw everything at the wall and it all stuck. You've got high-concept sci-fi ships and sword and sorcery battles. You've got a coming-of-age Arthurian tale with the main character being a cubicle monkey working a 9 to 5. None of this should work, and yet it does. In this instance, I lay this success almost exclusively at the feet of the cast. They all wanted to be there, and they all knocked it out of the park. Is it going to win any awards? Probably not. But who the hell cares what those hoity-toity idiots at the Academy think these days anyway? This movie will get its laurels from the fans. The people who watched the cartoons, played with the toys, read the comics, made endless Skeletor memes. Hell, it might even revitalize interest in the IP for a new generation. And really, if it's me and I were involved with this project, that's all I'd want. The fans are the ones who know this IP. The fans are the ones who want to see it succeed. And if I'm Nicholas Galitzine and I have some 70-year-old dude telling me I played He-Man exactly how he'd imagined him as a kid, fuck that statue, that's all the accolade I'd need. So kudos to everyone involved with this project. You did a great job. Just don't screw it up with any sequels you might be getting. Anyway, that's all I've got for you this time, so if you could do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons, I'd really appreciate it. Every little bit really helps me out. Also, head down to the comments and let me know if there's anything you guys would like to see me cover in the future. And while you're at it, go ahead and check out the other videos on my channel, or hit up my website to see my blog and maybe buy one of my books on Amazon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.